What up, world, and welcome to another episode of Black Nerd Fridays. I'm your host, Neal, and as usual, I got the crew. I got Suds, I got Mr. Refine. You see the new logo, it's going down. And yes, today we are talking about what I call a masterpiece. And if you don't know, it is Princess Mononoke. All right.
Mononoke.
Fire. All right. Dear God. Shout out to the dear God. I don't know why y'all play him like that. Suds, what's up? How you feeling?
Hot in this fur. I'm not gonna lie. This little fur.
Right. Looking, you
trapping the heat.
Son is ready.
Trapping the heat. I mean, she always ready. You know what I'm
ready.
saying?
That's what I'm talking about. We're ready. What up with you, Mr. Refine? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm ready to get into this. This was an excellent movie. So yes. I'm ready to get into it.
Yes, definitely. Princess Mononoke was definitely an animated movie. We just call it a movie. This is one that stands the test of time. We're talking artwork. We're talking just motions of the characters. I mean, again, you can see as you get more involved with technology and see how a lot of the new animation is set up, that they, again, when it came to backdrops as far as grass and things of that nature, if they weren't doing an up close shot, then it was really still. But as they got closer to things, that when it comes to moving, man, like the dear God, when he was introduced, that life and death aspect, which I thought was amazing, something I really want to make sure we touch on as well. But as we do here at Black Nerd Fridays, we love anime, comics, mangas. We love sci-fi movies and all of the above when it comes to that nerd life. But we also love what? Craft beer. Come on, we got to do it. So we're gonna start off with Mr. Refine. I'm gonna shoot the camera to him. Mr. Refine, talk about what you drinking today, sir.
So I got a what is this? Vapor Rings, double dry hop Vapor Rings. Now I'm gonna give this as kind of like an ode to the Ironworks facility there. So you got the little clouds of smoke, and that's what I'm gonna test that too. This is a double dry hopped Imperial Oak Cream IPA, 8.4%. So I can't wait to get into it.
All right, KinkySudz, what we drinking on?
Now, you know, I always keep up with themes when we're talking about this type of stuff. So, first off, I go with this beautiful blue can. And you guys should know who does this type of artwork. You guys know what brewery that is?
No, but that's a beautiful can.
I was going to say it's either Adroit or Abomination or Nightmare.
It is Adroit. Yes. This one here is a, where'd it go? It's a hazy Imperial IPA. I love it. This is what, 8%? But what I really like about their cans is besides the artwork they always have on here, right? They always, wrong side, give you like information of like what type of food to pair it with, cheese, cigars, because I also like to smoke cigars, music, which I think is pretty cool. So I'm excited about this one. And then, of course, since we're talking about animals, I had to get something with Great Notion.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
The bear. Okay?
That is a good one.
We're going to be talking about the gods. Had to at least talk about bears. And this one here is a blueberry muffin. I'm excited about this one. This one is a tart ale with blueberries. So I'm excited about that. I don't know what the ABV is on this, but regardless. Oh, no, I take that back. 6%. 6%. So we're going to start with this guy, start off blue, and then transition to the hazy. So, you know.
I see what you're doing. And as always, you know, I always got to bring the heavy load. Well, a couple of times I wasn't, but as we all know, Juneteenth had just passed.
Heavy load.
So, you know, I told you I was saving up, ready to get it going. Shout out to Brick. Brick is on. You know, what up with Brick? Shout out to the pizza she got on with us right here to support.
I'm loving the fur.
Yeah. That's right. So it's going down. So I went Juneteenth, Oak Park Brewing Company in Sacramento, California. They did a couple of collaborations with Hella Coastal Brewing Company, Full Circle Brewing Company, which is in Fresno, California. Some of where Mr. Refine's folks is in that area, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that is correct.
And then we also got Hunters Point. Shout out to Hunters Point in the SCO, San Francisco, California. So we got the good old Hunters Point right here. So I just talked about them. The brewed tea. This is their what do they call this? The pineapple ginger saison. Okay, like come on now, let's look at that right there. Pineapple.
That's interesting. Pineapple ginger saison.
Yeah, it hit pretty interesting. Again, Brick, these are low ABVs, so hey man, they put a lot of fruit in these beers. So the saison is 5.2 ABV. Shout out to them. Love how they got the axes going on right there in the boxing gloves. Definitely has some symbolism right there that we can talk about later. Then we got a lot of Oak Park beer. Okay, we got the People's Beer. They're People's Beer IPA again. Oshawa, Wisconsin, if I got that correct. That's where the People's Beer was started. Black man by the name Mr. Mack Sr. bought the brewery from a group who couldn't hold on to it, and they lasted for a little bit. But now the Oak Park Brewing Company got the rights to it. 6.7 IPA. And then we also got, again, we're going to stick with the fruited theme. It's the Brewteenth or Juneteenth. This is the Mango Pale Ale, which again from Oak Park Brewing Company, which is fire, like very low, 5.8 ABV. But when I tell you this mango, like this is not puree, this is fresh mango. That's like literally somebody sat a whole day and squeezed mango into the tank. Beautiful thing. And then shout out to Brittany, the Her World Company. This one's for her. This is a nice one. This is a guava kettle sour. Okay, loving how these colors are coming along. And this is a 7% peach guava kettle sour. So I did a little bit better. And then I had to get the big one, man. And this can art is a beautiful piece of can art right here. This is the Helicoastal Federation Jubilee collaboration. Look at that right there. Come on now. Let me keep turning the can and show y'all that artwork. That artwork is beautiful. Like you got to stop playing out here. It's for real, for real. All right. And this is a guava wheat ale. And the percentage, if I can find it, is 6%. So, I got the Crowler Life on that. So we getting it going. So let's jump into it as we normally do. We always do the good, bad, and the ugly. So let me go ahead and put that on there, discussing the good, bad, and the ugly. And I'm going to start off with Suds. Go ahead. Talk about your good.
Well, Alice, I was trying to take a sip off of my beer. I had to say, for the good, overall story was just great. Colors, it was just the whole story itself was just really nice. I myself love nature, so anytime you get into this idea of life itself and nature and just how we as humans haven't done so well by Mother Earth, I really enjoyed the story a lot. I can always watch this. I've watched it many of times. So to me, this is always a classic that regardless of the mood that I'm in, I will always watch it. I really didn't have any... I think the only thing I could say that was bad and ugly about it is just the hard truths about how humans have treated Mother Earth. That's the only thing I could say about it. Other than that, I thought it was beautiful. It's one of those movies where you hear about it and you go, yeah, it can't be that great. It's like hearing about Spirited Away, right? You hear about that, or Howl's Moving Castle. Everybody hypes it up. And then when you actually watch it, you go, that's pretty good. But there's so much more meaning to the movie itself besides just being entertainment. So I'm always going to love this movie and say good remarks all around. But I did want to shout out culture, beer culture.
Shout out the culture, for real, for real.
And
go ahead.
This beer, this blueberry muffin, it comes off heavy
Cheers.
With the blueberries.
Cheers to everybody on
Cheers.
that.
Cheers, y'all.
This is like heavy on the blueberries. But boy, it has a little bit of tart, but not too much. This is good. I hate when beers are too tarty. I know some people like it, but I don't want to do this with my beer.
That's a perfect kettle sour. That's what D got over there.
Yeah, I got that. I got that's going next after this mango pale ale. I had to start with that.
Good.
But Mr. Refine, go ahead and talk about your good, and then we'll jump into the bad after you.
I got to go with a lot of stuff, and I'm gonna kind of keep it short and simple. The artwork was gorgeous. The animation was gorgeous on there. The whole storyline, like Sud said, I used to read that series of books by the author's name was Brian Jocks, and it was like a Redwall series, etc. So when it comes to nature, I like that sort of stuff. I like mythical creatures. I like to see animals and stuff walking around and talking. And the thing that I got out of that the most was that when it comes to Prince Ashitaka, he was pure. He was a good person. He was a good soul all around. And what he did was he was able to put his life forward before anybody else. And That's what we are lacking in this world and in society. He was able to move forward in his life and show people that you can be good, but also sacrifice that for the good of everybody instead of worrying about just yourself. And we've kind of lost that in our society right now. And that's why a lot of us aren't willing to sacrifice things. So I was picking that up in there, and I just thought that overall it was an excellent movie. I've watched it like 3 or 4 times, and I pick up on different things each time I watch it. So if you haven't watched it, check it out. And that's my good on it.
My good is going to just reinforce what Mr. Refine himself said. Artwork is fire. I remember watching this in high school in art class. Shout out to the art teacher, by the way.
Man, never remember back that far?
Yeah, never finished it, to be honest. It was crazy. I mean, never finished it. And then I finally finished it, and I remember as I was watching it again and taking notes. And shout out to the notebook. You already know. Shout out Earn Your Leisure. Rashad for telling us to get some paper so we can write on these things. Definitely got my notebook, taking my notes. But yeah, definitely I love the characters. Definitely gonna jump into that bad and ugly, because I do got some bad and ugly outside of even though calling it a masterpiece. Some bad parts. I'll get to that in a second. But overall, this was a beautiful movie. It stands the test of time. Like, I mean, it's just amazing. And to shout out to TJ Sterling from Ray Comics, who said a lot of people are just not drawing as much, and especially with movies. And that's what I love about animated movies. You can take your time and draw like very fine detail, and that's what you got that's just what you got from the movie. But let's go. We're gonna start off with Mr. Refine for the bad, because again, we got to do a good, bad, and the ugly. Everybody has to know it's not just the greatest thing since sliced bread, or at least that's what the saying is. Mr. Refine, what do you think on the bad side?
My bad, honestly, would be watching the men in the Ironworks little city. They were just useless. Like, I respected the women. They were powerful. They were holding it down. And you got to remember, these women were women who were probably former prostitutes. They didn't really say that, and they definitely were slaves. So, yeah, it was definitely implied. So to watch Lady Eboshi take these women in here and put them in the spot, but at the same time, these men are just absolutely useless. They're idiots. And they just look terrible. Like, even when they was at battle with the samurais and stuff, the men were just like looking like, what am I supposed to be doing? And the women were holding down the fort instead of the men. It was crazy. It was bad on that interpretation, but entertaining nonetheless.
Oh man, Suds, where you at with your bad?
Man, you know what? I like that, because for once they actually had it where the women were doing something and they weren't real high voice with the big boobs and all that with the fan service. Thank the heavens. I'm like, I agree. It was a little bit on the side of they weren't doing too much, but at the same time, I'm like, it's nice that you finally have it where you have strong female characters and a strong female leader. But honestly, I think for me, like I said, the bad for me is really just how much it echoed the truth with what we're doing in our modern times with what we're doing with the earth right now. There's no respect. We've lost all respect for Mother Earth. We've lost all respect for animals, for nature, for insects, all these things, right? So, watching it made me really stop and think about how much truth there is behind it. But I will say the one thing I think is pretty bad is that when the prince did go on his journey and they said he can't come back, I was like a little hurt by that, because I was just like, you can't return back home. You about to go save the world, and you tell me I can't come back? And they're like, well, once you're gone, that's it. And then the thing that really was bad about that to me was that he was the last one. Like, that was like, without you, we can't really continue on, which is sad. I started thinking there's a lot of cultures out there, if you really think about, like, with Native Americans, like, there's tons of them that have been wiped out, right? And they don't have anything or anyone to continue on their culture. So there's a lot of cultures that we have lost around the world because we're just going through and wiping people out. So I felt that it's more or less, it wasn't bad from a sense of bad storytelling, but just really making me go, God, we are terrible. We are absolutely terrible. But that's my bad.
Facts.
Cheers to that, because that was
she was spot on with that.
Well said.
I try.
That was good. For me, for my bad is really going to be the backstory to the characters. I really was hoping as I watched it again, I was like, man, there's so much going on. You're talking about with, and I wrote down the Shogun. So you got Aizano, who's one of the shoguns who's at war with Mikado, who's the emperor. But even that with Lady Eboshi, if I pronounce her name correctly,
Eboshi, yeah, that's right.
Eboshi. Even with Ashitaka's clan or tribe, like you wanted to know who they were. They never gave their name.
The Mishi people.
The Mishi. Okay, see, there you go. He watched it way closer to
me.
Got
the whole
my team. I'm loving it.
That
but
one name.
Yeah, that one name. I was trying to write names too, but just the Makoto. I wanted to understand that history, why they pushed them back. Was it just how shoguns were doing in the I forgot if it was the Edo period or before that, where you had Nobunaga, who was really trying to unite all the clans because everybody was warring for land. So that was something, at least on my bad side, that I wanted to just talk about, was just getting more in depth, even with Eboshi, because I'll get to my ugly, but there's some things that I wanted to see with that character and the women around her, and I got a sense of why she picked those women, and because as Mr. Refine said, the men were just seen as useless, but I think that artwork and that direction for them was for a reason, especially when you see how all the men were interacting. And if you think about it, just in that time where you're literally running up to people, I mean, this is Lady Eboshi was really the one that took that European style with gunpowder, just like Nobunaga did with the gun, and really started to utilize it in battle and make different types of weapons using the gunpowder. But you could just tell with these soldiers, like as men, if you thought about it in that time, you're literally on a battlefield and you're just running up to somebody and like you got a sword or a spear and like you're just trying to stab, slice away, and like generals are sitting back and then they're rushing forward and it's shooting arrows at you. So you could just tell like the mentality is not going to be like, yes, I'm going to think so much outside the box. It's really just trying to survive. And a lot of them, I mean, that's why they seem to be like almost groveling or just inadequate in that sense of space compared to the women.
I could say when you think about war in general from back in the day, right? Like it was always men who were going out, right? Yep. Like that was it. I mean, you also see it in the animal kingdom as well. There are a few where the females dominate. When
That's
you think
right,
about
the
lions and hyenas, because a lot of people don't get that either about hyenas.
Yes. Or females.
But typically, when you think about it, it's usually the males, right? So this hunter-gathering, culture that we used to have in the beginning, and even when you think about wars that we've had recently, you usually see men going off to war, right? So, I mean, you think about it. I mean, it was interesting that for them, they're like, that's all I do. I die and I come back and drink and eat if I make it. Right. So, and like every once in a while, it would be nice to get some action or get some lady attention. But for the most part, all I'm doing, I'm just a body. I mean, you think about it with the beehive as well, right? Female are working, but the males are just serving one purpose, and that's it. So I think it's kind of interesting that they played on that a little bit with this town where the women were in control and the men were seen for just one purpose, and that's it.
That's a very good way to look at it, because I didn't think of it in that aspect. But I will say my ugly on there, and I'm gonna kind of touch on.
Go ahead, jump the line. Jump the line for your ugly. just thinking about the point of what was going on. So what happens is you have Lady Eboshi, who pretty much was making iron, which is for the guns. And when you find out that they're chopping down forests and all that stuff to get sand to create the iron, and in the process of doing that, you're killing wildlife, just as what we do right now. But also you're trying to keep out the animals, the boars, the boar god, the apes and stuff, where we're trying to replant trees. And I thought that was kind of dirty in a sense, because it reminded me of how we live right now, where we want to just take. But then at the same time, want to put up a fort as if, let me keep my stuff in here. But you're taking from the land and you're not putting anything back. And I thought that was ugly, but it was also a lot of truth to it. So I appreciated that aspect, but I did not like to watch it, because they literally slaughtered pretty much that whole clan of the boars just to keep this iron going. And it was sick. And when you remember at the beginning, why that first boar, which was Nago, Nago, the boar of the web.
He was infected with iron, which they didn't understand at the time. But when Ashitaka brought it over to the Lady Eboshi, then he got his answer. So I just didn't like that at all. I thought it was kind of messed up. But as I said, it relates to how we live right now in this world. And it's a hard truth and pill to swallow.
Ooh, I'm gonna jump on that one. I think honestly, I have to agree with you. That's an ugly truth. To me, it also makes me think about. So we're going through ravaging the land that we're on right now, and now we're talking about trying to terraform another planet. We're talking about trying to go to Mars, and it's like
are we
never
really
learned,
terraforming, or is that for one group of people?
So that's a whole other thing we start getting into the political aspect, right? And even socioeconomic. But I think overall, I'm thinking like we have a planet here where if we just changed our practices, we could actually do really well on this planet alone. But because we haven't learned that, we're taking our bad practices to a whole other planet. And it's like we won't learn a lesson because look at how much space junk we have out there now. We need it because we're using it to probe and all this type of stuff, but we're leaving a lot of trash in our wake. So
and
we're going right. So it's like when you think about that, we're now going to another planet. We're probably not going to, try to be. I mean, we might start off that way, but again, with the amount of people that are talking about having moved to planet, I mean, if we don't change our ways here, we're not going to take the practices with us anywhere. So that ugly truth of them going through and destroying the forest. I mean, we're seeing that now. Coral reef, the giant coral reef, is bleached to a large extent, which is ridiculous. The rainforest that we have in the Amazon, some of it burned. I mean, Australia was on fire a couple of years ago, and that completely wiped out a large number.
California was on fire and still
California's always on fire. Let's just be real about that. If I didn't know any better, I would say California was hell because we're always on fire. But I mean, when you think about it, right? And then the thing that gets me is when the pandemic first started and we stopped moving as a group across the world and we like shut down, countries, we stopped travel. We had told companies, hey, make everybody work from home. They talked about how things had changed, right? Like the water started clearing up. Animals started coming back to areas that they had been pushed out for years. The amount of gases that we were putting out into the environment had decreased dramatically, and you're seeing air quality improve in areas where it was terrible. So you have to say to yourself, seeing these amount of changes is a short amount of time, right? Just think of what if we were to continue to do stuff like that, what we could do as a whole, right? But for me, I thought, I think the thing that really got me, and I think was the ugliest part of the movie, was when with the one eldest boar, the boar god.
Oh man!
And the creatures had taken
Okato.
Man, I was so mad that Okato had to die like that.
And they took the skins, right? I know, sorry, but they took the skins of his fellow boars to trick him into thinking, hey, we're here with you. Just keep going, right? Like that to me was sad, but I'm also thinking it is something that we that said you see that wolf in sheep's clothing, right? So that was just like, let's get him to where we need him to be. And that I thought was just pure cruelty. And it was sad to see that he was thinking, oh, I'm here with my people. Let me lead you back to this place. And then it just screwed everything up. So to me, it was like, they were like, we don't care if the forest dies off. We need the space. And it was like, they weren't thinking downstream. What does that mean for them? I mean, they found out quick. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
We're gonna get into that in those moments that I think were key. Ugly for me, man, and I'm gonna just say this straight up, and I know y'all probably be like, really? Lady Eboshi and what's his name? Get his name right. Prince Ashitaka. Like I'm telling you straight up, like Lady Eboshi, I'm like, you're seeing death, but again, that ties in. And I thought her character was very complex. And that's why I said my bad was the fact of them not going in more elaboration of what got these characters to the point to where they were at. She literally were killing gods because she said before we started going to get the iron, before she went over there, everybody else was being killed by Nago, the god of the West, or the boar of the West. And they were afraid of the Moro, the god wolf. And her clan, and it was just. But the thing to me was like, you see all this death happening. You literally saw Nago turn into this monster, but you were so bent on control. Because if you even in the point too where she was talking to I think it was Jiro, if I get his name right. Yeah, I know Jiko.
Yes. Little red-nosed guy.
Yeah, the one who they called him the chief. He was the one working for Mikado, the emperor. But even then, I could tell that Lady Eboshi was like, I know the emperor he wants the head of the deer god. But not only on top of that, he also wanted the ironworks, the iron manufacturing as well. And then on top of that, Asano, the shogun who was in war with Mikado, wanted that place as well too. And to me, it was like, whatever you've been through, Lady Eboshi, you see the outcome of what you're doing. But she was like, this is men fearing gods. I don't fear gods. And it was, to me, it was so crazy because it was like
hubris.
You literally see the death that you're causing, but you're just like, because you thought you want power. And reality was for her character is she really did not have power, because at the end of the day, even though she had the iron and she had the guns, Mikado had the numbers. Asano, he had the numbers as well, but it was Mikado, the emperor, that can get people to move. Like Jaco, his stealth team was fire. Like whether you like him or not, they were trained killers.
Yes.
Like point blank period. And even though she knew they were hiding outside of the ironworks, like they literally, if he commanded it, they would have took the place just like that. Like, well, because she was working for the emperor, he didn't do that. Because his goal was the head of the deer god, and we'll get into that a little bit. But as far as Prince Ashitaki, what I didn't like about him was like, you can't toe the line. Like he wanted them to live in peace, but I was like, there is no peace. Like, yes, you appreciate the women that were doing the ironworks and putting in that work and really had a passion for it because they believed in Lady Eboshi, because all the men were treating them like nothing but pieces of meat or nothing but something to amuse them. But I was like, you can't toe that line. You see the devastation that it causes firsthand, and you talk to Lady Eboshi, who really, honestly, she had a very misogynistic perspective on power, even though she did have a feminine aspect to when it came to other females that were in positions that they wanted to get out of, and she really freed them of that in that aspect. So that was really my ugly, is just I just really didn't like that, because I was like, you, even towards the end, even when Prince Ashitaka was like, don't do this, like this is going to create chaos, you do not want to do this, and she did it anyway. And I was like, and she did it anyway, and she lost her arm. But I'm like, see there, and I understand why they did that, to where she less necessarily didn't die. I was like, if it reality with the deer god going into literally death mode, not the life mode, but going into death mode, he could have just that blob could have swallowed her whole. But I know the story. I know how they had to keep the story going with her, and because she's more complex than just that one-sided aspect. But I just thought that those two characters really kind of pissed me off, and that was my ugly with that.
You know what? I got one question for you though. If she was a man, would you be as critical of her character?
Yeah, I would.
Because
go ahead.
Because I feel like a lot of times what happens is that when and I've seen this in corporate America, I've seen this in shows and in movies, that sometimes when you have a female lead that will mimic things that we typically see in men, there is a bit of added criticism to it, right? And it's viewed in a negative way, in the sense of, she was very unwavering in what she believed, right? And typically when someone's like that, that's seen as a good thing, because they are strong in their beliefs, right? Now, of course, her beliefs were a little skewed, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, you talking about I don't care what happens, I don't care if he loses his head type of thing. You're like, hold on.
Yeah, don't be afraid of the gods type of situation. And like, I'm like, this is crazy. Go ahead.
But then the thing is, like you said, she had witnessed what the gods had done to humans. And she's like, why should we sit here and be in fear of them when they can choose to kill us at any time? And you hear this any time when you talk about any anime, right? They always talk about gods in general, right? And it's like, gods can do whatever they want. So why is that? Why must we always be at their mercy? So,
I'm gonna say this too. When you're done, I'll add to that.
No,
go ahead. Finish. I'm gonna add when you're done.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The only thing I was gonna say is I just think it's interesting that her character. I mean, really, she basically was mimicking what I've seen in a lot of other anime with male characters. And it was really interesting. They had it where a female lead was like this. She was very strong. She was feared. But it was interesting that she was trying to empower women in a way and putting them into these positions and taking them out of this like the submissive, role that they typically would play in those type of cultures. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But she did take it to the extreme. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm gonna say I respect her. What's the word I'm looking for?
Unwavering.
Yes, her unwavering attitude, and she's headstrong in her beliefs, etc. I respect that. There's nothing wrong with that. The issue is she was just plain up being greedy. Because you saying you're in fear of stuff, but let's touch back on where we went through recently. Like you said, when COVID first started and everybody was in the house, things changed, the air, the water, etc. And I physically noticed a difference. And I'm gonna say this: I have deers and stuff that live around my house. We got some other wildlife around here, but we were having bears come back around here, and I've never seen a bear before. I've seen zoos, but my point is, living in that time, first off, we think that we are the apex predator, but we're not, because if we don't have anything to quote unquote defend us, whether it be a gun or spear or something, a lion, a bear, a cheetah, whatever, they can take us out. And we need to remember that and respect nature. And they lost that in this movie. And I think that was the issue with Eboshi. I don't care if she was a woman, because her beliefs are what they are. But the fact that she was willing to sacrifice nature and stuff just to get something that you want, so you can in turn be a god in your own way, is a problem. And I didn't respect that at all.
Oh, can I? Oh no, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'll wait.
No. I guess the only thing I will say when you say we're not an apex predator, I look at it as this: we have molded the earth to what we want, right? We have changed ecosystems. We have. In a way. I mean, when you think about it, we have left scars on this planet.
Okay, that I agree. Yes.
Scars. Okay, from whether it's with farming, whether it's with the nuclear testing that we've done, with the new technologies that we have put out there, we have made our mark. And when you think about the number of animals that have gone extinct because we have hunted them or because of what we've done to nature.
Yes.
Now, if you're talking about going toe to toe with some animals, it's a done deal. Okay, you can't go toe to toe, right? But at the same time, because we have that extra ability, and of course, some animals are shown to be able to use tools, right? But we have taken it a further notch, right, to give us that upper hand. So in a sense, in that regard, I mean, we would be considered an apex predator, but at the same time, we do still have some weaknesses, right? Like that. I mean, it's just like if you go into any new environment, like if you take an apex predator from one area and move them to another area, right? Like there's going to be some type of challenge there, right? Sometimes it can still dominate because of the area, but again, they're still going to win most battles in that area, just like with us, right? Like we're going to still win most battles. But I am kind of curious if we start to pull in other microbes like bacteria and viruses, right? How we still have not been able to control them effectively. Like we've been able to do it with like polio, and we have vaccines for stuff, but we're still getting our butts kicked by Ebola. We're still getting our butts kicked by HIV. We still haven't gotten COVID under control, right? So we're not totally controlling our environment, but we've done a pretty good job, I think, in that regard.
We've done a pretty good job of tearing up stuff. That's why we're getting what we're getting on top of it.
No, you being too nice. We have fucked it up.
Yeah, that's fact. This is Unfiltered out here, like Roland Martin. Shout out Roland Martin Unfiltered. Go watch it if you haven't.
Go ahead.
I just think that Lady Eboshi's character, I love her character just because of that steadfast perspective. The problem that I have is that her character, literally who she really was, or who Eboshi really was as a person, you really don't know because of the way that she was brought up in this masculine society, and she after power. Literally, she was shown. I mean, literally, if you think about it, the emperor was using her. I mean, the emperor was using Jaco or Chief Jaco, Jigo. the emperor was using them all for his means of getting immortality, because he said if you eat the deer god's head, that you'll become immortal. And literally,
how's he going to do that though?
I know, but I mean, we'll never know, because deer god, spoiler alert, deer god's dead now. It was crazy to me in that sense for her character to be like that, because like with all the women that are the females that looked up to her and the positions she put them in, it was really, to me, it was a sad moment where she did have that second. If you think about watching towards the end of the movie, she had that thought process,
moment of clarity.
Yeah, where Prince Ashitaka was like, he threw the sword and was like, "Don't do it." And she was like, because she was so focused on this. If the emperor gets what he wants, he'll leave me the iron ore deposit. The manufacturing area. And it's like, no, that's not real power, because the real power is that he can come take it at any time.
Yeah,
you weren't really.
But you know what?
You weren't really gaining power. Like that's just what it was. Like with all the guns. Again, remember, the guns were a one-shot situation. It wasn't like what we have now, semi-automatic or automatic.
Yeah, reload that musket.
Yeah, and load it. And then the way they had it, like coming off the shoulder, it was just like, okay, yeah. Once you shoot that, even when you at the ironworks where the Asano's group was attacking the ironworks to take over, they literally pushed everyone back to the stronghold part of the ironworks, because they were putting up thick wood, cutting down the trees and making barriers. And like those shots, because they were one shots, they could keep moving forward. Even if 10 people shot at one time, there's still one shots. And remember the ore was like a ball. It was
huge.
Huge ball. It wasn't small like that. So you would think that, oh yeah, that has a lot of mass. But then for the gun, you had to make the gun the barrel huge. The barrel big enough so that it could fit through there. So now you're taking away that friction and all that good old physics that comes into play. But just overall, I was just like, to me, it was just it was a drop. It was she dropped the ball in that aspect. And but I'm gonna let you go ahead, Sudz, and get your.
I would say, I think we have to think about it's a time era that she was in, right? And from a woman's perspective, that was probably the most power that she's ever seen in her life. So for her, she's like, if I get into this position and I'm able to craft, and like she was on her way to crafting better weapons, right? So she was like, if I have a technology that supplies, the ammo for these guns, and I'm constantly improving, I will always have my place in this world. Yeah. And so for her, she's like, that puts her in a position where she can protect her people. She keeps them safe. She keeps them fed. And so to me, I'm thinking, when you think about in that era, it made sense that she thought, well, fuck it, I might as well just try it and try to secure my place and protect my people, because we have always been overlooked. And you could just tell from the viewpoint of the people in that town, as you could tell, they were considered to be of lower class anyway, right? So for them, they're like, yeah, we have a leader who's really looking out for us, and they're going to back her regardless. So what? Most of their men died in war. They were like, hey, prior to this, she had the ladies for us, she had the food for us. I mean, we were living good. We were doing pretty good, So I think for that regard, I can understand why she thought she was going to be in a very powerful position, because usually if you've got the money or the or the weapons, you typically you are king at that point. I mean,
yeah, I agree with you. I want to say, kind of switch up gears a second. I actually love those little, I think they're called kodamos, the little things.
The little guys.
I absolutely love them. Yeah. And I'm going to say, I noticed that if you paid attention to other animes and other cartoons, i.e. Avatar and stuff, they took some of those characters and threw them in there.
Zelda.
But those little, Zelda as well. But those little kodamo, or whatever their names are, those little mythical sort of creatures, they were cute, but I kind of relate that to, as always, reality in the society we live in. If we were to get rid of all this technology, because we're kind of blocked down and boggled down with technology and science and stuff, if we get rid of all of that and we go back to earth and nature, don't you think that things like that would be around, where we would be able to see them? But we're blocked right now by being in the technology and stuff. And I like that they were able to put that aspect into the movie and make it relevant.
I'm gonna let Sudz go first, because she seems very excited.
I am, because I think about it. I mean, when you really stop and look, like if you ever go on a hike, right, or go camping, that light pollution that comes from the city is no longer there. So you're able to really take in the beauty of the stars that we have above us, right?
Yes.
When you sit in nature and you actually listen, you can hear the sounds of nature, from the insects to wind blowing. You get different smells of like flowers and the dirt and trees, like all these things. Like you really become connected to it if you really pay attention. And it reminds me, what you're talking about, these tree spirits, about this book I read called A Nature's Fix. Excuse me. I was burping and trying to talk. Not good. I would seriously suggest reading A Nature's Fix. That book talked about the importance of reconnecting with nature and the effects that it can have on your health. And so they were combining a bit of just what cultures believe about nature and science, and showing that when people would take a walk, like, so, they've been stressed out with their corporate 9-to-5 job, and they go and take a walk out in nature, whether it's a park or a hiking trail. And they did this where they took like blood work and did a few other tests to show like, hey, their stress levels are really high, things are out of whack. After that walk, and they did the same set of tests, the amount of decrease that they saw in these stress factors, right, was just astonishing. And so it's just really this idea that reconnecting with nature can really turn on different cellular pathways in us that can really bring us back to center. And because we're always being bombarded with blue light and stress and emails and work and pollution, we're blocking that, right? We're blocking that connection. So when you think about movies like this, when you think about movies like Avatar, because Avatar also talked about this as well.
Yeah, I'm not putting Avatar in that category.
Well, the reason why I say that, is the sense of them saying that they were connected. Oh, that's a whole nother story. But I'm talking about in the sense of the underlying story, like with that, we're talking about how they were connected with nature, right? That piece of it, like when we think about movies like that talk about that piece, that to me is something that I think we are losing touch with because we're so caught up in technology and in our little ecosystem we've created. So I love when they bring in these little spirits, because there's always this question of, when we think about how we have feelings and we have fear, right? We have love. They at first thought that animals didn't have that, but then you see elephants mourning over the loss of a loved one, right? Or someone from their group. Or other animals that are doing it with like with dogs, when they had a pet, they had another pet in a home and that pet dies, and how they respond. So we know that animals can do it. Now the question becomes, do we see these same type of, primitive emotions with other aspects of life, right? So some would say trees don't, because trees don't have that type of neuronal system we do. But again, we barely understand how our own bodies work. So the question is there a way for nature to communicate with each other, to let them know that something's not right? And it's like those type of things to me really got me. So that's why I'm like, I totally suggest reading A Nature's Fix. I totally would suggest watching this movie, because it's like you said, those little tree spirits, I thought they were adorable. I was like, I need to buy some of those and put them with my other figurines. But I really,
they got to do the little, like that.
The one thing I will say, when he was carrying the one guy through the forest and the other little tree spirits like did the same thing, I was like, see, they're watching us. And so
then the bigger one was on the smaller one, and he
back.
Stopped and looked at him, and he was like, all right, I'm gonna keep going.
Right.
No, that was crazy. So I'm gonna pose this question. I'm gonna say, what character did you enjoy? I'm gonna start off with Mr. Refine. What character did you enjoy?
I enjoy, and I really mean this, I really enjoy Ashitaka, not because he's a protagonist, but because that selflessness about himself. He wasn't selfish. He was very giving. He had a big heart. He was willing to sacrifice himself for the good of everybody, and I can really respect that, because I kind of relate that to how we live right now. Like when you talk about the NBA and stuff, and people didn't want to boycott for the things that should be boycotting, everybody folded. They only boycotted for a quick thing and folded. But this guy was willing to sacrifice everything, even his own people and everybody in the world, to sacrifice himself for the good of everybody else in the world. And I really like that about him. He was also very brave. I love the fact that he put himself in harm's way before he let anyone else get hurt, and that even included carrying and helping out two strangers that's he just seen in the middle of the woods that were injured. That right there, that's noble, that's honorable, and you don't see that in too many qualities in people right now. That's very rare. So when I meet people like that, I like to keep them around because those are just good people in general, and you know that they are connected to not just us; they're connected to everybody, and as you said, nature. So Ashitaka was my guy in that movie, just based upon his qualities.
And that's a fact. I like that. I'm gonna go with Suds.
Oh, I have to say the gods. I thought the gods were amazing because they each had reservations about humans, right? And they were like, look, we're a dying breed at this point. And I really thought the deer god, let me tell you something about the deer god. When they first show him, right? An old dude's walking on water. I'm like, oh my God, he's like Jesus Christ.
And didn't he have like a? Sorry, it says didn't the deer guy have an amalgamation of a
he was
deer,
like chicken feet and like deer.
That wasn't chicken. It was like a reptile, like a dinosaur looking type of.
It was weird.
Alligator
It was like
mix. And then you had the face that was like it looked like a human, but a baboon.
Yeah, it was so crazy.
Smile on
it
the
was
face
like everything.
It was like it was like I was watching Berserk and like that was a demon, but you didn't know if it was a demon or a god because the face was always smiling. It was never it was never like
it was kind of creepy though. When you
it was right.
Because he would like look at you, and you felt like he was looking into your soul, and you just
he was, and that's why he saved Ashitaka.
If it was a he, shout out to.
That's why he saved Ashitaka because he's seen the goodness in him, and that's what I'm talking about.
You know what gets, and that's what to me I think the gods are really interesting because although they hated the humans, they still showed some sympathy for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you think about the wolf god and how she had the feet, you know, she took care of her. She's like, came across her as a child, and she's like, she's a part of the clan. Like she's never been a problem. When they're like this, I don't have a problem with them, but when they're like the other humans, I want to kill them.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was really interesting that they're so large in nature, but in size, but you can't find them as easily. I'm thinking as large as she was as a wolf, or as large as he was as a boar, I'm surprised you don't see more of them, but that was also because their habitats were larger, so you had large forests that they could hide in, right?
Yeah.
And as you start to eat away at it, you start to see more and more of them coming out. And I think
on their habitat,
right? And I think the other thing too, like the monkeys, they were like, "Look, we don't like you guys. We keep trying to plant trees, and you keep coming over here messing with us. We're gonna throw rocks at you." So, like to me, I thought it was really funny because they were like, "We have one goal in mind: maintain Earth. Like that's our thing." And if it means that we have to kill you humans, we will do so. And I thought that was like the only reason why they were doing it is because they were like, you guys have no respect for what we have. So for me, I really enjoyed the gods. I thought that and the little tree spirits I thought were adorable. So those are my favorite characters.
Let me say one thing before D go. What about the voices that the gods were speaking? And you remember how they were talking, like how the voices?
Yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like Moro's voice was the only voice that I didn't like. I was just like, it just didn't fit the character, especially because it was, and again, that's just my, my bias on what a.
But you got to remember, they weren't verbally talking. It was kind of more. I feel like
telepathically.
No, I got you. Yes. But I like how it was like,
hear the undertones
like when he talked. Go ahead.
Yeah, because you could hear the undertones of like growling and stuff, which I thought was pretty cool. So like they're growling, but it's almost like what they did in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy when you hear what he's saying until they put that bug in their ear and then it comes out in English. And you're just like. You weren't making that noise just a second ago. Like that's what it reminded me of a little bit, just a little bit.
I mean, for me, I like Taki, and Taki is actually she's like the pseudo leader for the women when Lady Eboshi is not around. But the way she talked to her husband, like
Kokoro, whatever his name.
He's
Kokoro.
Like,
I mean, but she loved him. He's like useless man, but I love him. And but it's like. Because she's like the unsung like hero because when all the other women and men that were bandaged up and some of the men were not useless because they were making the guns, but Taki definitely was a character that I enjoyed. Enjoyed the most. So yeah.
What did you guys think about the characters that actually made the guns? The ones that were kind of the
mummy-ish
the lepers.
Yeah.
The leopards, I think,
because they were cursed. They got some of them were not necessarily cursed. They were ill. or they had.
I would think they had like leprosy or something.
Yeah, something like that. But then some of them actually got, when they were killing these guys off, because again, the Nago, the Boar of the West, I don't think he was by himself. So they, again, back to that, elaborate more on like those that I would love to see, and we'll get to that. I'll save that, but I'll say it now. I would love to see like Princess Mononoke Part 2 or a prequel to like before the Ironworks got built, because that is probably where a lot of those women's husbands, because a lot of them, they weren't necessarily in prostitution, at least from what I understood. It was that they had husbands, but because again they died. Killed, or they died in the they died when they were fighting the guys. Shout out to that. Love that culture class. I gotta give me one. But Sudz, what about you? And then Ren, and then I'll go to the next aspect.
I think, I'm trying to think. I don't think I had a thought and it just like escaped me. That's that old age.
We're coming back. We're moving to the next one. No.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Don't worry. It'll come back towards the end.
What's the question you were asking again?
My next question is, I forgot the question, so I'm moving to the next question.
What character did you dislike?
Yeah, no, that's a new one. What character did you dislike? I'm gonna go with Mr. Refine himself. Go ahead, Mr.
I absolutely hated Eboshi. I really hated Eboshi. Just like she reminded me of, I'm just gonna be honest, like a privileged white man who gets everything he wants, and even in the face of adversity, like she's still trying to persevere and do whatever she wants to do. She loses her arm and she's still able to lose her life. I did not like that at all. Like I said, I respected her beliefs, etc., but I did not like the way that she went about putting forth these beliefs and stuff, because she could have attained having ironworks and all that stuff another way. I think she could have worked in commune with nature and stuff, which is what ended up happening at the end, but she was being greedy. So I hated her just on that aspect.
Sudz?
I would have to say the Prince's tribe, because
you just like the Prince's tribe?
That's like 60 people.
And the reason why I say that is because
they kicked his ass out. Like
they kicked him out, and it's like, you know what he's trying to do.
You about to die. You gotta go. See
like we can't keep like once you leave, that's it. And it's like, well, why can't people go and explore outside of it? There's more to the world, right? Like you need to know what there is out there to keep your tribe going. Like, of course, if you keep yourself isolated, it makes sense.
Yeah, but we know the world. I was just about to say that was the aspect of it, because again, remember, Emperor Mikado pushed him off of their land or whatever. So they were in hiding, and also he was gonna die, but not only just dying, but if you come back, you can. But if you don't,
but that's because of here.
Yeah, but
it's because of the teachings that they gave him. Like, come on.
But it was also because again, like we've been able to stay out of this. I mean, you're talking about shoguns fighting for land and everything like that. They were literally nobody was even going that far west, or in between the west and the east. No one was going that far, so they were doing their best to just be to be isolated. I mean,
no, I get it. They were trying to be like, Switzerland. We're going to be as neutral as possible. I get it. Okay, but here's one of your own. He is your prince.
Yeah.
Your prince. And you were willing to say, sorry. Like, come on.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Right, like the whole reason why he even went out there in the first place is because one of the gods came crashing in and almost killed people. And he's like, well, I'm going to go and investigate why, because if this continues to happen, I need to understand how to stop it and why. And if I can stop it from happening, then they won't come over here. And you're like, sorry, dude. Yeah, we get it. It's a noble cause, but sorry.
I got two things to that.
I'm like, come on.
Go ahead, Mr. Refine.
The god came over there, the Boar Nago. He came over there and died. But think about when he said, I want you to the oracle right before he died.
Yeah.
She was praying over him. He like, I don't care about your prayers pretty much. I'm good. I want you to have my fear and my agony. That's what I want you to have when I die. Number two, if you think about the village that he's from, Amishi people, whatever, when Prince Ashitaka met up with Zico, which we had no idea who he was at the time. I thought he was just a drunk man based upon the red nose, but he really was the leader of assassins. My point is, he said, oh, I kind of remember hearing stories of your people because they rode red elks, which, were similar to what you have out there. So Yaku was a beautiful elk, antelope, gazelle looking creature.
Beautiful.
And I kind of respected that he was able to keep that old school vibe going on and be in tune with nature. And this is why I say Ashitaka was my guy, because his whole village was just all about being old school and being in tune with nature.
Culture.
As opposed to,
you know what?
Sticking to the code. And that's one thing. One thing, I'm sorry, Suds, but that's one thing.
Go ahead. I'm gonna wait.
Y'all done talk a lot, damn it. Let me talk. No, I'm just joking.
No, we gonna let you talk.
I know, but that's one thing that I did love about the Ashitaka's tribe, is that they stuck to the old ways, and it was respectful. And like just the oracle, you're talking about female empowerment and the way that the females were shown to be strong. The oracle, I love the fact that the oracle was like really like everyone listened to the oracle. It was not a matter of you didn't question the oracle, because the oracle was really, when I say like spot on of what was coming, like the oracle said you're destined to die, but it didn't, she's like your fate. So she didn't really say destined to die. She said the curse is killing you, but you have to go on this journey and you can't come back. And everybody, like you can see like his father, which I don't know who his father was, but definitely his dad was in there. And then a lot of the other tribesmen were like, this is the way of this is the way of our clan. And right, wrong, or indifferent, I think a lot of times especially African-American people who are in the United States really want and really respect about like the Klingons and a lot of these other groups that we see in sci-fi and anime, are those who really stick to their code, whether we like it or agree with it or not. We it's really that yearning we have to have that code. And to know what your clan's ways are, like your culture is. And I think that's why, for me, again, and I'm only speaking as a male, for me as a male, I was like, he literally cut his hair and was like, I got to do what the oracle said. And that also shows the empowerment that, again, back to the African aspect of us as Black people in the United States. A lot of women in African culture were they were the higher ups. They were the ones who were, when they came to communion, and you go sit and you talk with the elders. Yes, you had males, but it was the females the females that had the final say. So that's why I love it. But my dislike was definitely Lady Eboshi, just because I was like, when that split second when she has a chance to decide, and I like her again. I love her unwavering, this is what the hell I'm going to do, because I'm not going to be under the rule of a man. But it was like, you're literally going to create havoc. So pretty much, even though you hated what men did or males did, you were being exactly like a male. And then you want a different outcome, which you didn't get. And I mean, she died. Did she die? I can't even remember.
No, she just lost an arm.
Right. So she didn't die. So to me, back to Mr. Refine's point, I hated that fact. I was like, look, you need to die. Like, you did all this. You almost got everybody killed, and then you still talking, you still living? Nah, bullshit. I don't.
Yeah.
You know what?
But, I mean, but anyway, go ahead.
I'm gonna add in on this. I'm gonna add in. When you talked about the God saying, I want you to feel my pain and my fear. That, to me, he was still not speaking from his original state of mind.
No.
He was talking from a state of, he had transformed into this demon.
Yeah.
So when he said that to me, I was like, a part of it might have come from his original state of being a god, his old self, but at the same time.
That was him, like the ore was out and everything. He literally.
You don't know, but again,
But the same thing happened.
Even if he had the ore taken out of him, it's just the fact that he had to go through that, right? Like it's like.
But he doesn't like humans because they go against nature, and they're going outside of their station. Yeah.
Like it's like, as we as Black people, when we think about what white people have done historically to us, right?
To the world.
You're speaking.
To the world.
I'm going to talk just for us, because the whole world's a whole other story. To us as Black people. And you talk to when you talk to a white person, you look at white people, you are thinking from that state of mind of, I know what you've done, whether it's from me personally or what has happened to people that I know or from my ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as I'm concerned, he was like, I want you to understand what it feels like to be put into a corner and you can't escape from that. Because you humans don't understand that. Like you don't get what it means.
And that's why I said he was clear-minded.
At the edge.
He was focused. He knew exactly what he meant.
He wouldn't even have said that. He wouldn't even have said that if he didn't transform into a demon. That to me, I feel like he wouldn't even have said that because he knew, like, if he didn't experience getting shot with that iron, or if he didn't experience that transformation, he would have been like, yeah, humans are insignificant. Who gives a shit? Like, that's how most other gods felt. Like, they're insignificant to us. But when you start to encroach on them, they were like, nah, we need to eliminate you at all costs. Right? Yep. But as far as I'm concerned, with the female leader, with her, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, she lost an arm. She could have died, but you know what? Any other time they have a male character who goes off the rails and he doesn't die, I might let her not die. Because I'm telling you, when they made it look like she was about to die, I was like, come on now. How many times have we seen a male character go off the rails?
I was waiting for it, Suds. I
didn't want her to die because I would have been
mad. That's why we like to have that feminine energy on the show.
I'm telling you,
so we can really go back and forth. Because if it was a male character, I would have been like, you got to die too. Okay, like that's just
true.
Facts.
Yeah, I agree with you. But like the fact that they haven't,
you had a chance. There's plenty of times where everyone has a chance, and this was on some other stuff. And like when the deer god went on full death mode, I was like, it ain't no question. Like everything that you thought, when you thought that you were in control, the first time that Lady Eboshi shot the deer god, and it just said, and then was like, let me keep walking. Basically what it did. It was like that went right through me. And that's why I love the deer god, because I know we're coming up on that hour mark. Or we already at the hour mark. That's why I love the deer god, because the deer god it wasn't an emotional aspect. It was only like, this is what I do. I'm life and I'm death. That's it. And like, and the deer god wasn't trying to stop the humans. And even with how do you pronounce the boar's name from the south? Okoto. Like all of them were asking this question of why the deer god doesn't do that. And Moro was like, well, do you not remember that the deer god is life and death? All this stuff that we're doing is trivial. And that's why the gods were the way they were, because the deer god was like, it was a balance, not a he. Excuse me. The deer god was a balance of life and death. And when they took that life aspect away from the deer god, as it was transformed into the night walker, literally you just brought death. And like nobody was ready for
humans.
Yeah, exactly. But the humans couldn't even handle that own aspect of death. And so to me, that was why I was like, with Lady Eboshi, like, yes, again, a character who really had, like, again, that gumption to be like, I'm going to do what it is I want to do. And I'm going to go beyond what these men or these males do. So I respect it. Again, like I said, we had the hour mark. I had one more question that I wanted to get into. And that last question before we get too crazy is, let me see if I get it, because this is a great conversation. I love it. What character did you want to learn more about? And I'm gonna go with Suds first, and then I go to Ren. Keep your comments short, damn it. No, I was like, because it's already hour.
I'm gonna say, you should do the other question you had, but I'll keep this one short. I'll keep this one short. I would say the gods. Honestly, I really would like to know how they got chosen, because that to me in itself, like, I would like to know what they were like when things were a little bit more in balance. Were they more sympathetic towards humans or not? Were they kind of had this disdain for humans, or, like, what was their story? Like, did that hate for them grow over time, right? That to me, I think would be really interesting, because they lived in a time when humans were still trying to figure things out. So when they were watching us as humans in infancy, what is that actually like? How did they feel about us? Did they feel that we were, again, still insignificant, or did they have hope? I'm really curious about that.
Mr. Refine.
I would go with the gods too, because they are kind of like the driving force of the story and why everything is where it is. So I like to know a little bit more of their history.
I'm going to go with Dear God, just because Dear God was shit. All right. Dear God can kill everybody if Dear God wanted to. But Dear God,
that's what he would do.
Dear God was just playing the role that Dear God does, which is life and death. There was no malice. There was nothing to it. It's just like, this is just the way. All right. So, man, again, Suds, Mr. Refine. This is what I'm talking about. This is why we do what we do. we constantly have great conversation. I think that Prince Mononoke definitely got that age-old humanity versus nature, or man versus nature, and really just turned it on his head, where it's like you are a part of nature, and you're attempting to fight something or be outside of something so that you're not seen as barbaric or Neanderthalish, or if that's even a word, or just something to where it's like you're not, your intellect is not shown. Like, you're, at the end of the day, everything that we do, from what we eat to drink, all comes from this planet. And we're no better, no matter how much our imagination, which could be our greatest strength and our greatest weakness, can propel us to go forward in just the way that we deal with society. So if you have not seen Princess Mononoke, we did the spoiler alerts. I mean, we're talking about multiple years that this movie has been out. You definitely got to go catch it. If you like what we do every Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, hit the like button, subscribe, share with a friend, and enjoy. I'm your host, Neal. Suds, Mr. Refine, it's been a pleasure. And we'll catch you on the next episode of Black Nerd Fridays. And we're drinking beer, always. Craft beer life.
Always.
And we are going to be out.